Now this is James,
I
our
know
president.
James.
You know James?
We've met before. Shows like this are a very important part of rural society, and I think it very important that we continue to knit those fibres together and not let them come apart. By doing this show remotely and by video, then I think it maintains that feeling that things are okay and there is behind the scenes a little bit of normality going on. So if we can do at least something to bring communities together, even if it's indirectly, then I think that maintains a certain continuity, and I think it also reinforces to people, particularly in these tough times, that actually, you know, there is some normal out there. Last spring was very dry and not a good one for bees and for honey. Although we had lots of flowers, a lot of the flowers were dry because of the lack of moisture. This year, certainly around my area, my bees have been going very, very well. Honey's been flowing in nicely, and I'm expecting to see some really interesting honeys. I've got one that is almost as black as treacle at the moment. It's got a very unusual taste. I'm not quite sure what it came off because all my honeys are sort of mixed flora, but something out there is affecting this honey, and it is interesting because different seasons, different years, different flowers produce different honeys. And if you look at the wonderful Australian vegetation, it has an amazing way of bouncing back after these bushfires, and you just got to drive around here, and in some parts you wouldn't know that there's been a bushfire. It's been quite extraordinary. So as long as those plants are flowering, then we should still get a good honey crop. So you sent in your paperwork already?
I did.
And you're under the name?
Baker, Joan.
What are the...
Liquid honey, creamed honey, and a block of wax.
That is beautiful. Have a look at that. Because that also shows some of the clarity of the wax as well. So I'm looking at top and bottom and consistency as well. And that's a lovely block of honey. And it smells divine. The thing about honeys is, of course, they all taste different. They're all quite different depending on what plants they've come off. Some have a real heat at the back of the throat, some have a very subtle flavour. But what I'm after, are two distinct things. I want to make sure that there's no evidence of overheating the honey. I mean, people shouldn't be heating the honey up, but sometimes people do, thinking this will help clarify it, and they inadvertently cook their honey. So I'm looking for that kind of slightly cooked caramelly taste. But also the other thing is, if the moisture content isn't right in a honey, it'll just start to ferment ever so slightly. So I'm tasting for that kind of slightly brewed flavour, slightly beery flavour. Sometimes, so you're looking for that texture, that nice and smooth. You can't criticise a honey because it doesn't taste nice, because that's its natural flavour. If it comes off a particular plant that produces a slightly unsavoury honey, you can't really criticise that because it's a natural product. What you're looking for are where the entrant hasn't quite got it right, cooked it or fermented it or what have you. It's down to 3 honeys, and they've all scored exactly the same. They've both got 90 points out of 100. These are the 3. I've got a creamed honey, which, although it scored well as a creamed honey, I'm going to set it aside because there were some flaws with that, but it still scored nonetheless quite well. But it comes down to these 2 here, which are liquid honeys. One is from imported flora, and the other is from native flora. Okay, but that again shouldn't matter. They're still judged equally. They're both in the same sort of colour range, and they both got a very beautiful flavour, both very smooth honeys. No evidence of candying per se. They've both got air bubbles locked into them. They could have been clarified better. And the distinguishing feature that casts one from the other is that this one has got a lot more air bubbles into it, and for a liquid honey is verging on candied, where this one is clearer, and for a liquid honey is a liquid honey. There's not a lot to it, and It hasn't gone crystalline, but it has almost set. But overall, flavour is what came into it. I think it comes down to Joan Baker's got it. I'm really pleased to give it that one to Joan Baker.